pass these out now, or it's a little bit?
I think it's fine to pass them on right away.
I don't know if we
Hi, I don't think so. I'm Jen.
Jen.
I work with Camilla,
Oh, you're on
the marketing team. Yeah.
Great. Who's responsible for the handouts we saw at the ATC board that you sent us?
Oh, it's Jen.
Oh, which one's
The
yeah, of
book.
course. Oh, yeah. Right.
Oh, I think you printed some of those out. They were.
Thank you. Hi, Jen. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, cool.
We're just the subtitles there, we're all being recorded.
It's fine to get
Okay.
off.
Okay.
So we're right at time, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's still working. Okay, so I'm gonna do this over there. You'll just work from that, and then you just need to remember that if you finish up here, you also need to close this one and just log out.
Yes.
And then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Good to meet you finally in person.
nice to meet you. How are
Yeah,
you?
that's great. And you must be, oh, Jim, great to meet you. Yes. Thanks for sending me all that
Go by
stuff.
James, right?
You're a James too.
I go with you. You have the, you have the responsibility when your name is James.
Yeah, it's filter between Jimmy, James and Jamie your entire life.
No, I've been there.
Oh, yeah, no, you go, you just do phases, so. Daniel was like, what do I call you? I was like, dude, I don't even know. Sure, James works.
Yeah, Mark,
Director of Planning.
Oh.
Nice to meet
Pleasure
you.
to meet you.
It's up to you anywhere.
Oh, excellent.
Hi. I'm
Hey.
Camilla.
Oh,
Director of
great to meet
Marketing.
you,
Yes,
James.
nice to meet you. So this is Jen and Caleb. They're part of the marketing team.
Oh, great.
So
Good to see you too. Welcome.
Hey,
Hey,
nice to meet
Jen.
you. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Yeah.
Who's everybody?
Yes.
I'm Nathaniel.
Hey. Caleb and Jen from the marketing. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Bonnie and Matt and Marco on that.
Yes.
The bad news is I had to rely on I saw you walk in, I was on the desk section.
Oh,
That's
really?
I called my emergency transit. I ran home from the bus stop. Legitimate question.
2 years ago.
And then, ran home and I saw the 30 go by.
You know, I was like,
We were in it.
that's exactly how it's going to get here. And I was like, but I made it through side streets.
Yeah,
It's all good.
We're still trying to push out a lot of messages.
I was so worried. I was
No, no. I gotta do this.
I left work.
I took the defer to the group. If they want.
I actually had to do some work while I was here. Just send up a little bit crazy day. We have a big meeting for work tomorrow.
Yes.
People are flying in and stuff. I was like,
You know how much money? Hello, I'm James.
I'm Devette.
Oh, great to meet you.
I think it might be end up slightly higher than that.
Yes, yes. How about you? Oh, great.
20 to 25 million after.
Off the top, right, yeah. So I think it's 25. What I heard.
well, I think we'll be all right. I think we've got plenty. I think we've got plenty covered on it.
One other.
Oh, no.
Well,
Like the service expansion, next year, it's really.
Yeah, it's every 2 years, so it'd be 2 years. Yeah, yeah. See, I had Jim send me.
Well, so they take.
So luckily I was on.
So if we were to try and find your land,
I was like,
oh, what better plan activity? I sent my iPad out, it was 180 pages.
but some of those diagrams are really great. Last cycle was very concerned about like some of the socioeconomic, like competitive and make sure. That's some pretty good analysis. They usually ask for a bit of that time to do our, but based on that sort of next year.
It's like all recognitions do.
Yes, I can't say it. I wish it was next year. Next cycle.
Yeah, but, it's a lot of work.
Inspiration, just like that.
Yeah.
Depending on what the world looks like.
Not, well, I was, at one time I was, yes, not anymore.
Games off that
What's that?
night. This game's off that night.
So it is that last year.
I
I haven't been consulted in almost 10 years.
Hi, this is Jim Aslanka. I'm having a hard time getting in using the Teams software.
One more question.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me well. Okay,
Yes, yes.
this is my I'm not able to see things in Teams yet.
You want to ask that one? Okay, the 825, yeah. I'll try to talk about that.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this thing. This site cannot be. Oh, okay. Here we go. I bet you this is. You've run into an issue. Oops, something went wrong. Restart.
You okay to start?
Already?
Going. Password. Type of meeting.
All right, well, Jim is getting in there. I just want to go ahead and get started. We're just a few minutes after the half hour here. Wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being at the kind of Q2 Advisory Committee. Appreciate everyone joining. Wanted to start off by welcoming. We have a number of new faces here that I wanted to introduce and give each just a moment to introduce themselves to the deck and get a chance to be recognized here. So I'd like to start with Jimmy, then we have Caleb and Jen as well. I'd like to give a moment to introduce themselves. So Jimmy's our newest member of the deck. Jimmy, maybe give us a little intro background on yourself and
Yeah, sure thing.
how you ended up with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I live in Old Town. I'm a rider of the 31, the 30, and the 33 and 34 primarily. I work at the Pentagon. So I'm in the Army, so I guess I could take the 104 there, 103, but I tend to take the Metro. But I really just love public transit. I actually took a course online about public transit. It's something I'm super passionate about, and I love to see people using free transit service and getting around town. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you. Caleb, Jen?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I'm the digital content and marketing designer here at Dash. I started just last November, and I just moved back to the US from living in Germany, where I got to really enjoy all the nice public transportation there. So I was really excited to start working at a public transit company here in the US. Today I'll be presenting some of the logos as part of a Dash brand refresh that I've been working on. So really excited to, get your thoughts on that. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And hey, everyone. So my name is Caleb Keller. I am the marketing and public engagement specialist. So I will be working really closely with the advisory committee. I'm really looking forward to doing all of the outreach and public engagement aspects that the DAC already does, but looking to enhance that over the next few months. And as long as we're going to kind of be pushing the envelope in what the DAC does. So really looking forward to working with you all, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So a couple of quick other items that I had on my welcome. The first is I wanted to thank you all for supporting the letter to City Council. That did get sent on Friday. I sent every member should have gotten, every member of the DAC should have gotten that as a pre-send. Thank you all for your support on that. I know that was a little bit different way than we've done it in the past, but I think it was really important to call that together in short order and be able to action that. So I wanted to thank all the members of the DAC for supporting that so promptly and so quickly. The other thing that I wanted to take a moment to do, that I wanted to take a moment to do here is recognize our service anniversaries for the members of our DAC. We've had a number of folks who have been here for a while, and I wanted to just take a moment to start the meeting by recognizing those folks. So for 1 year of service to the DAC, we had Marcos, Eric Adams, and myself, I guess, are the three folks who've been on 1 year of service. Thank you all so much for your contributions. Marco, I see you saying woo is right. Thank you very, very much for your first year here. I wanted to also extend a sincere thank you. Obviously, your service predates even mine, but absolutely thank you for 4 years of service to Yvette, Bonnie, Eric Van Horn, Jim, Jason, and Jim Meslenka. I think several of you are all on the line. Sincerely, I wanted to thank you all for your contributions and just recognize that. I will also share that I will give you all a copy of the Dash census survey for everyone who said that they were comfortable sharing the information. We'll get that shared out. I think you'll get some pretty interesting insights in being able to see where folks are generally located, what lines they use, as well as sort of their general interest in what we do here on the DAC. So that census survey will come out after the meeting. So thank you. And Camilla, I think you've.
Yes, we do have some certificates for the use of service that we want to share.
Thanks. Thank you. That's very kind. So for those on the phone, can we hang on to them?
Yes,
for
we
the
can.
next?
Yeah, for the next meeting.
We'll be able to get your years of service certificate, your recognition certificate all scheduled out. Special thanks to Camilla for pulling that together and finding those, for pulling together those recognition awards.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll start with the roll call. Nathaniel Cartagena,
Here, present.
James Durham.
Here.
James Palmer.
Here.
Eric Adams. Eric Adams.
Here he is.
Present.
Welcome.
You're on the.
Marcus,
Just want to gap. Thanks.
Marcus Bernier,
I'm here.
Nafol Kula. Kathy McCannis,
Hi, how are you? I'm joining you from the Washington Convention Center where I'm on the margins of a critical minerals convention. So hopefully bringing some good lessons back for Dash. Thank you.
James Maslanka,
I'm here.
Yvette Young.
Here.
Jason Koenig,
Jason's here on the 302 number.
Bonnie O'Day,
Here.
Eric Van Horn.
I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
I get to go first?
Yes, you get to go first. George.
Wow. Well, thank you all for having me. James, welcome. Glad you're here. Nice to meet you. I'm the general manager and CEO here at Dash. So hopefully we're going to get you a tour of the facility soon. And anyone else who hasn't had one, please let us know how we can orient you to what we're doing here. Since you're especially interested in transit, we like to show off what we're doing. And everyone on the phone, thank you for everyone for your service, the 4-year service. I remember when we were talking about this committee and then COVID hit and then we said, wait, we can't do this because I don't want to start a committee without people actually able to come and serve on a committee. And then eventually we gave up and said, okay, fine, COVID's going to be here forever. We might as well do it on Zoom. So thank you all for sticking it out and joining us. I'm really here just for you. I want to provide just a few comments. As you all know, the budget process is ongoing, and thank you for leading that effort to weigh in on the budget process. I think it's very important that this committee feels empowered to step in and speak up when you feel it's appropriate and on what matters you would like to speak to. I think a sort of a broad summary is that the budget process is ongoing with the city. I won't recap all of the public details of the calendar and whatnot, but I will say that the information is posted on the city's website, and there's a bunch of budget questions that have been asked and are now posted on the city's website, and several of them are related to Dash. On a high level, in the city manager's proposed budget, Dash was fully funded at our current operating levels, which means that essentially they took the board's recommended budget submittal that was presented back, it feels like September, October, very early, and awarded that. There was some concern because there was guidance that was restricting submittals to, I believe it was 2%, and that was impossible for us to hit because our collective bargaining agreements alone call for 4%, and it's not really just 4%, it's more around 6%, because you have to consider the fact that not only do the salary scales slide, but people move in them. So year over year, people move up a step and the steps themselves adjust by 4%. So that's where you see that variance. The other things that contributed to our budget being higher than that 2% mark were largely inflationary and maintenance costs. So parts, supplies, everything is just astronomically more expensive. And so we made adjustments to our budget to accommodate for that. And the city understood that, accepted that, and took our budget as is. There is a small, quote unquote, reduction in our budget. I think the thing that's key for this group to understand is one of those is related to rider guides. We still produce a full ride guide, which a lot of transit systems don't even do at all anymore, but we do feel strongly that they are important. That reduction, we believe, is going to be covered through some grants from the city. So we were able to reduce some of those costs. It does not mean that people will not have printed ride guides anymore. I would challenge this committee over time to be talking about ride guides and rider information. It is very expensive and very time consuming and difficult to keep printed materials up to date in modern day. But as someone who spent many years in my career serving individuals with special needs, I've recognized how important it is that for certain populations in our community, they have something that they can pick up and carry with them. So I would not say that I am a advocate for totally eliminating kind of printed materials, but I do think there's an opportunity in the future to rethink them and find ways to do it better or more efficiently, and potentially in ways that help individuals who need them, aside from people who just pick them up and then throw them in the trash after using them one time, which we know happens. So that's one of the reductions. The other reduction was a small reduction related to software, non-consequential to us. It was an efficiency we found within our own budget. We suggested that to the city and they took that. So all in all, I would say that our budget process was quite successful from a current services perspective, and that is certainly our priority. It is my priority to always show up tomorrow the same that we showed up today. People rely on us, we've got to be there. Outside of that, there are a number of supplementals out there, and I know that Jim and many of you have for many years followed these. They are tied into the Alexandria Transit Vision Plan, a plan jointly adopted by the ATC board and city council. There were also, so there's a number of service enhancements that are called for, and that's still, Martin can talk about these, I believe, in his ATSP, but those are still unfunded improvements from the 2022 vision. So we're now 3 years behind where we should have been. So there's certainly some conversation around that. There are add delete submittals and proposals in there, thanks in large part to the advocacy of folks like yourselves and the Dash Board of Directors, who also reemphasizes those in their annual letter to the council regarding the budget. The numbers are really, really tight. The reality is it's not at all a surprise that none of those supplementals were included in the original budget. Had one been included, I would have been totally blown away. It's just the money is a real challenge on the city side, but there is still very much an interest in trying to solve for some of this by many of the council members. So it's hard to say how that process is going to play out. There's still a lot to be done, and certainly we know that they have to figure out where to find that money. And these are ongoing operating costs, so it's not just a one-time kind of thing. I was approached by some members of council and asked about my perspective on the supplementals, and as I would say to you, I said to them, I always support the supplementals and we need to do them. I recognize the fiscal constraints and want the city to find more meaningful ways to solve for those. But line 32 remains the priority as is prioritized in the supplementals list. I was asked the question about other priorities. I stand by the priorities of those supplementals as submitted. So I've not deviated from those at all in my conversations with them. And there are a number of sort of partial implementations and whatnot. I encourage you all to have a robust conversation with Martin, as I know he's going to be here presenting to you about the pros and cons of those different aspects. The last thing I'll say about the budget is we certainly recently just had the annual stockholders meeting. For James, since you're new, and many members who may be unfamiliar, Alexandria Transit Company is an incorporated entity in Virginia. So we have bylaws. We are owned by the city, but we are not a city department. Our staff are not city employees. The city does not make day-to-day operating decisions regarding Dash. Alexandria Transit Company owns the assets of the corporation. So that's all of the buses, vehicles and whatnot, equipment, furniture. This building is technically a city building. So there's kind of an odd lease agreement set up with them. That's not really, I've never even seen anything like it. But anyway, it works. So don't mess it up if it works, right? But with that said, there is a requirement that annually the city council comes together as the stockholders of the corporation to reappoint board members, to appoint new board members, and to handle business matters. The chair gave a nice update. Council was very receptive and enjoyed, I think, the conversation. They gave us a little more time than they usually do, which was nice. So we certainly appreciated that. And in that conversation, we recommended, based off of a budget work session where we were present, where the mayor, Mayor Gaskins, brought up the idea of discussing Dash's priorities around capital, and particularly around electrification. And so the recommendation that I gave the chair, and the chair ultimately gave city council, is to hold a joint work session between the two entities in the fall. They were very favorable to that, so we're going to mobilize and get that together. We would love to have the DAC there and present. I don't think the vision would be necessarily for the DAC to be at the table since you're not a governing body, but to be there in the room and be a part of that conversation where appropriate to help inform council members and the board of your representation of our ridership. Ultimately, though, I think the conversation there is going to be around electrification of the fleet and the sustainability of the CIP. because in out years, we do not even have enough money in the CIP funded to replace diesel buses with diesel buses, let alone diesel buses with electric buses that are substantially more expensive than the diesels. The last thing I'll say is that I was just reading the news this afternoon after I came out of a staff retreat and training we did today, recognizing that the administration has decided to forward their tariffs even earlier. And these tariffs are wreaking havoc on many things in our economy. One of the impacts they're going to have on transit is that the largest manufacturer of heavy duty buses in the United States is a Canadian company. And their factories are all in the United States employing American workers. And in places like Anniston, Alabama, and places that are really need those businesses. So we're benefiting from this business, yet we're now tariffing. And that is going to not only affect our ability to purchase the buses, but the parts and supplies that go along with them. And who knows what else. We've already heard that they are asking to pause contract orders in Virginia in order to understand what the impacts are of these tariffs, and we can't blame them for that. Aside from New Flyer, who is that Canadian company, they are the largest. The next largest is a company called Gillig, which with sort of half of our fleet is New Flyer, half of our fleet is Gillig. Gillig is also an American company with their plant in America, but they only have one. And their output is substantially less than that of New Flyers. So I mean, last thing I would say is systems like WMATA can't even buy Gilligs. The company is not equipped to produce the buses that some of the size of WMATA needs. So that's all being built by New Flyer. So you can kind of already process what we're going to potentially be looking at as a result of those actions. So all of this, I think, comes back to say we need to have a candid conversation about the sustainability of the CIP and how we make sure we continue to replace buses. Because if we don't replace the buses, if we continue to defer replacements, the equipment's going to age, it's going to be more costly to maintain, and ultimately it's going to stack. So that within the out years, even if we miss 2 years, we now have those 2 years worth to catch up, plus the buses that are coming along, because our fleet rotates gradually. It's not like all 115 buses or whatever we have comes up due at once. It's over a period of time. So it's going to be a challenging time, but I'm really happy to be working in this community and with this group of people and in this organization. I think we can find solutions. So I'm optimistic ultimately about the budget and where Dash is going and what we're going to be doing next. But that's my high level. That's what we've been talking about. That's what I know. Certainly happy to answer any questions.
Was it New Flyer that asked to pause production, you were saying?
New Flyer has been in conversations with Virginia, with the state, about the Commonwealth's contract to purchase.
Gotcha. Okay.
We have not received any specific communication that I'm aware of regarding buses we have on order with New Flyer, although that is likely to come. They are delivering one of 2, if it's not already here, electric articulated buses that are coming off the assembly line, but then we've got a batch more of buses that are on order. Some are diesel with a bunch of other electrics that we have funding for through our loan-out grant. So.
Can you, in a given year, commingle the CIP funding and your operating budget?
No. Well, on the federal side, you can't do it at all. On the city side, the city sort of manages that delineation of the two. The operating budget is typically so maxed out. There have been asks in the past about the potential for lease kind of arrangements, ways to kind of creatively buy buses, maybe partially or fully leasing them. Problem is that becomes an operating cost over time, and our operating budget is every single year already. I mean, again, we're at 6.4%. We were told 2%. So that's kind of why we stayed away from that. But generally, all of the CIP and capital projects are all isolated from from operating money, and we don't have commingling of those. We do, in some occasions, use CIP money to fund, the city does have examples of funding staff positions under the CIP in select cases, and parts and supplies. So like, Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, like the rehab of the hybrid buses, for example, there were hybrid bus repowering, battery pack things. Those are part of the CIP, that kind of stuff. So we've got some small items in there. I do think that what I would like for this committee to do is Raymond Louie, who is our Chief Infrastructure Officer, is out right now for parental leave. When he comes back, and whenever the time presents itself, either over the summer or the early fall, maybe he could come and present to you a full understanding of the CIP ahead of the conversation that the dashboard and council have about that, because he has a lot of understanding and knowledge of where there is and isn't money, and where those gaps exist.
And I had a question. This is Bonnie.
Yeah, go ahead, Bonnie.
Have you heard anything about cuts in federal funding for your CIP?
So the only federal money we have right now on the capital side is our $28 million Lono grant, as well as a $1 million on-route charging infrastructure. That was a community something grant, used to be known as earmarks. We got that through Congressman Byers' office. We understand that to be safe because it's obligated. We also understand the 28 million to be safe, although neither have been expended. So Commission tells you that they're safe because they're obligated, but the money itself has not yet been spent. So there's a challenge there. There is no other federal money that we receive on the capital side. However, there are grants that we are pursuing. We have basically been told that further Lono, which is targeting low emission, no emission electric vehicles, is very unlikely, probably not even worth our time at this point. But there is another federal program called Bus and Bus Facilities, and Bus and Bus Facilities is targeting improvements to the facility, the infrastructure, state of good repair. One of the things we've talked about is how to use that for facility related improvements. This facility is at or coming up on half-life, which normally would require a midlife rehabilitation type work. We do have the facility expansion that's ongoing, and that's a combination of a number of different pieces of funding, but that's not, there's federal money for that in Lono, but there's the rest of the construction projects in that, right, Martin, is all smart scale and other programs that are state. So, so I hope that answers your question, but it's a matter of what's in jeopardy is the question of what we can go after in the future.
Yeah, well, just because something's been obligated doesn't mean you're going to get it. I'll just say that, based on my knowledge of what's going on at other agencies that I'm more familiar with.
Yes, and we're tracking it very closely.
Okay, thank you.
Josh, I was gonna ask, do you know the date of that meeting?
We do not have any dates set up for the joint work session, but I'm targeting September. We're gonna have to align both. I think that what we do know is on our side, the board is going to be flexible with the September board meeting and probably replace that with the work session. It's just going to be when we can get council.
So I'll make sure that once we have the date, we can share it with the back. So if anyone wants to attend, you will have the information.
And we'll have it online as well.
I know there was something about new advertising partner. Do you see that or anything else for providing new revenue that can be used towards the CIP?
Probably not the CIP side. Typically, advertising revenue is an operating expense offset, which is a budget as a part of our operating budget. I know Camilla and the team have been working hard with the new advertising program and could probably speak better to that than I can. Exterior bus advertising is a small piece of money compared to our overall budget. A number of reasons for that. The primary one being our fleet size. We're in the shadow of WMATA, so if someone's going to advertise, they're going to advertise on the system that travels potentially Virginia, Maryland, and DC. Whereas we're just Alexandria, so we're a more targeted audience. But we did change contractors and have had better success with the new contractors. The previous ones did not perform as expected. But they also came out of COVID, so we gave them a little bit of grace on that, COVID advertising went, in the two. But it's a small chunk of money comparatively.
Yeah, and the entire fleet is not up to advertising. Like the newer buses don't have, well, we don't give them for advertising, so it's not the entire fleet. So that makes it also a little bit challenging.
And the board's previously decided to not do complete wraps over the windows because that detracts from the rider experience.
That's right. That's right. I mean, for the longest time, Dash didn't do any advertising at all. And I understand the financial implications from a personal perspective. I would rather not do advertising. Personal preference. I think it diminishes from our brand and our image, but it is what it is. We've got it. So we're working through it. We're doing what we can. But yes, we don't do full bus wraps, which can bring in more money. And we have now gone away from wrapping the windows. We do have stuff on the windows, but we don't wrap them entirely because we gained experience. Again, customer feedback, even though they're perforated, it reduces the amount you can see out of the windows. And that combined with the window tint, basically at night, you couldn't really see anything. So anyway, any other questions or? I'm always happy to come and talk. I'm gonna let you go on with your meeting. This is your meeting, not mine. So I don't want to monopolize it.
Just one quick thing to follow on from the schedule. There's been a longstanding idea of having the DAC members and have the ATC board have a joint meeting. And I think that's recently something you thought maybe we would do in the fall. Is that right? And so maybe if not, joint meeting
There's
between
been a desire to have one. We've actually never had one.
right.
But there's been an interest in setting one up.
Yeah, and because the board has different sunshine laws, would probably be scheduled around a board meeting, so.
Yep.
So if you're doing the city work session in September, could we be thinking about, and I throw this out to the DAC members as well, but I wanted to mention it while you're here, I think we ought to think about a combined DAC ATC board meeting maybe in October. We ought to look at our schedule and look at that.
Yeah, and if you want to circle back with Beth and I on that, we try to set the calendar over the summer and do a look ahead. I think that would be great, and I would like to make it something that's on the calendar that way we make sure it happens. But yes,
So not looking for an answer now, but I just wanted to mention that I think that's something that needs to think about and work through staff to propose.
yes, and I think you had brought that up as well.
Yeah, and David mentioned it. He had mentioned that when I was here in person for the board meeting.
The time to knock that out is likely in the fall because in the spring, we're getting ready to go into our public hearing meetings, ATSP, and then budget, and then that's June, and then there's recess. So, but we'll definitely get it on the calendar for you starting in the fall.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Enjoy your meeting. I know you got a lot of good material to look at. The team's been hard at work, so
Thanks, Josh.
enjoy.
We did skip the approval of the meeting minutes. So do you want to do that and then go to the workshop session?
I think we should do that at the end too. We'll do both those at the end and just go straight to Martin's content. Martin, if you're okay with that?
Oh, wow. Sure.
Are you good with that or? I think it just follows better after Josh's comments.
All right, good evening, everyone. Oh, thank you. My name is Martin Barnum, Director of Planning and Scheduling here at Dash. Congrats again on the certificates and the milestones. I appreciate all your service.
And you're comfortable going now? Sorry, I know I kind of sprung that on like 1 second.
I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
Thank you.
It makes sense because it is tied into what Josh just shared. So,
Yeah.
So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is our FY26 Alexandria Transit Service Plan. For those that may be new to the process, this is our annual service planning process that we go through every spring. It helps us identify service fare program changes that we want to institute for the following fiscal year. In this case, it's FY26, which starts on July 1st. We had a big change to this process last year based on some new state requirements. So that last year was the first time with this new strategic plan format. So last year was a major update. We're only required by the state to do major updates every 5 years. So in the intermediate years, including FY26 in the next few years, we're doing a minor update, which takes the form of an addendum, which is available. So you can actually see the website there, dashbus.com/strategic plan, that has the full plan from last year, as well as this update addendum, which is about a 30-page document that summarizes some of the changes that we're proposing for this year. This plan is subject to review and approval by the ATC board. We also have a very comprehensive outreach process that we do as part of this that Camilla will talk about a little bit. So as Josh mentioned, this year's current services budget includes no service reductions. We're very pleased to report that that's what the city manager put forward. Show you here, these are the other assumptions that we've assumed in our FY26 current services budget. The ATSP plan is directly tied to the city budget process. It kind of falls a little bit behind it because that, the amount of money that we're afforded is very, determines what we can and can't do to a great extent. But no service reductions, very pleased about that. And then you can see we have some, there's the stats, 3.4 million platform miles. We have some ambient growth assumed to help address some of our reliability challenges. We've had a chronic issue with reliability as more and more traffic builds up, as we recover from the pandemic, and then as more and more people are returning to the office. So we're hoping to be able to address some of the hot spots in terms of reliability issues. And then I do want to also call out.
Jim, I'm sorry, Martin, this Jim. So that explicitly means you have some more operating hours to operate a couple more buses at late times. Okay.
Correct. Yep. And then I really want to highlight the 395 Commuter Choice Program. This is funding that comes through the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission and VTC. If you've ridden on I-395 or 66, they have the express lanes, which have revenues that are generated from cars using those express lanes. As required by the Transurban contract, a portion of those revenues go towards projects like public transit that reduce single occupancy vehicle trips. So Dash has been very, very fortunate in the last 6 years that every year we've received funding to operate enhanced services on several routes. So for the last 4 years, we've benefited on lines 35 and 36. Then we run frequent service all day on those routes as a result of this funding. It's something like $6 or $7 million a year, so it's a pretty big chunk of change. However, we have to reapply for this funding every 2 years. And so this is one of those years. So we're applying for funding for FY26 and 27. We're applying to continue the enhanced service on lines 35 and 36. We are proposing a few extra peak trips on 35 just to help with some of the crowding that we've seen on that route. But we're going through that process with NVTC right now. And the reason that I bring it up is that they are going through their public outreach, their public comment process as we speak. I think the deadline for comments is April 11th, I want to say. I might be making that up, but it's somewhere around there. So I would encourage if anyone who, especially those that ride those routes, those are two of our more productive and highest ridership routes. But if you ride those routes, I would encourage you to go. I think we've sent out a lot of communications about it, but go and register your comments with NVTC and let them know how important those routes are and that we want to continue to receive funding for them. So great, thank you. So I'll keep it. Sure.
Well, on that, a couple of questions on the commuter choice. My fellow DAC members who were here with me 2 years ago, did we send a DAC letter in support of this Dash's grant request for that? I think we may have.
I'm not sure.
I'm glad I have.
And
I'm
so,
pretty sure you did. Yeah.
I would think it might be appropriate that in addition to individual comments, I took the survey today. If you go online to the site Commuter Choice, there's one way you can just send an email and to the address on the website, or you can take the survey where it gives you the opportunity to comment on specific proposals. So that is something I just think we might want to consider as individuals. but is there interest in, from ZAC members in doing a letter in support of the grant request? The service, I think it's $12 million we're requesting. For
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years, so $6 billion a year. And to put that in perspective, I think the city subsidy is
35, $36 million.
35, 36 million. So it's a big part of the DASH service. If we didn't get it, we'd be saying, oh, darn, we should have written. Our letter made the difference, you know. Anyway, I just throw that out there. What other people think?
I think that's a great idea, absolutely. I think what we can,
It shouldn't be too hard to write if we did one 2 years ago.
is it for the exact same funding?
No, the funding has changed a little bit, but the routes are the same.
Yeah, I think the biggest change is the overcrowding, the increased ridership, and yeah, I mean, the success of the route. I just,
Yeah, we always hear from NBTC that these routes are kind of the shining stars of the program. They do really well in terms of ridership.
When I was taking a survey today, I noticed that, so there's a technical score that NVTC does, I believe.
Right.
And the technical score of the DASH requests are number 4 and number 5 on the list, out of about 20.
I think it's about 14.
14 requests. So pretty high up there, but higher than our DASH request is a new bus service from Van Dorn Street Station to downtown DC that WMATA has put in. Can you speak to that?
Yes, so I can talk about the Better Bus Network that WMATA is launching in June represents a complete redesign of their network. And one of the routes that they had proposed, it was not part of their baseline FY26, but it is part of their future network, is the A29 that you're mentioning. And that follows the West End Transitway routing, which basically, as you mentioned, goes from Van Dorn, services Landmark, up North Van Dorn to Sanger, then comes across onto Beauregard. And then I believe it hits Spark Center, Southern Towers, and then jumps on the.
I think it stops at Shirlington.
It does stop at Shirlington, you're right. Okay, that's right. It stops at Shirlington, and then jumps on 395 up to Pentagon. So it's meant to be kind of a commuter express route. I think it's maybe 5 to 10 trips each direction per period. So it's kind of a commuter-oriented route, which is why it scored so well. But yes, so WMATA, if they do get the funding, it looks like they probably will. They would want to implement that in, I think, end of this year.
Not in June.
Not in June. Okay. Yeah, so that'll be later.
Thanks.
Sure. All right. Well, I will keep going here. Josh touched on this
Well,
as well.
just a sec.
Sure.
Do we want to make a motion to write a letter to support the 35 and 36 commuter choice program? Or don't we need a motion for that?
I'll second that motion. All right.
Yeah.
Was that a first, Bonnie? Were you making the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, second that motion for a letter.
Call the ayes. Anyone else want to all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? So moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bonnie, for catching that. All right, so as Josh mentioned, we do have a few unfunded improvements that we've identified as part of our division plan. They were part of our 2022 network, but we're still working to identify the funding. I won't spend a ton of time on these, but the line 32 that Josh mentioned is our top priority. You can see the map there. It serves the Eisenhower corridor, as well as goes up to Landmark via South Pickett, Holmes Run Parkway. So this is the only one of our 7-day routes, the 30 series, that still runs every 60 minutes on weekdays, during the middays at least. So the proposal that we've been trying to do is to improve midday, evening, and weekend service from every hour to every 30 minutes, which is consistent with our service standards that we have approved. And that just makes the route much more useful. Right now, it's low ridership, I think, because of the low frequency. So that would be to improve the route to 30 minutes, 7 days a week would be $850,000 annual increase to our subsidy. We as Josh mentioned, have been looking at some partial improvements to hopefully introduce some improvements to the route, even if we can't get the full amount. So if we were to just do that on weekdays, bring the weekday service, evenings, weekend, middays, evenings, up to 30 minutes, that would be $460,000. And then there's one other scenario that we've looked at, which would just be from the segment of the western segment from Van Dorn to Landmark. Bring that up to 30 minutes on weekdays would be about $240,000. So we provided that information to City Council based on their budget questions, and that will be considered as part of the ad-lib budget process.
Martin, I have a question on this. Do you have sort of any measurement of sort of frequency versus ridership? Meaning, like if you go from 60 minutes to 30 minutes, do you expect it'll go, or is it, you really see it when you hit 15, or do you have any kind of research or data that backs that up?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we do have a lot of information that we looked at back as part of the transit vision plans back in 2019, 2018. And the research then showed, and I think it bears out still now, is that 15-minute threshold is really when we start to see the uptick, kind of a disproportionate uptick in ridership. I mean, 30 minutes, you definitely see the increase, but when it hits 15 minutes, it becomes where you don't even have to check the schedule. You just walk out to your bus stop because you know a bus is going to come along soon. And that's where it becomes, more of a lifestyle where you can just rely on the bus instead of having to check a timetable every time you go somewhere. So that's why we kind of use that as our threshold for frequent all-day service.
I was going to mention this later, but I'll mention it now with a shout out to Gamal and their team and Jen for preparing some documents that the transit board distributed to City Council, and I distributed to the DAC members earlier. But if you get a chance to look at those handouts, one of them is for specifically an increase of Sunday service. So in previous 3 years, in 2 of those 3 years, I think City Council has, during the add and delete, made some change. The most recent one was a Sunday service from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. So if you want an Alexandria example of what the ridership, so what Dash did was measure, and I don't have Jimmy across from me has got his, he's probably calling it up, and somebody else may remember the numbers. But if you look at that handout, for that Sunday increase, from 60 minutes to 30 minutes, is that line
33.
Yeah. You'll see a marked change in ridership. So in addition to what Martin mentioned as, standard industry practice of where the line of demarcation is, of trying to get to 15, going from 60 to 30, even on a Sunday, increase of service.
Yep. Like double the riders, more than double the riders.
Yeah, I think it doubled. Yeah, I think that's right. And the other handout is probably not as easy to draw a straight line through the data point, but was line 30, the frequency was increased there for the route from Landmark to Old Town and on to Braddock. And there was a significant ridership increase there. So there's, of the 4 handouts, 2 of them specifically were frequency increases, and here's the impact in Alexandria on Dash.
That's right. Okay. So that's the 32. We also have identified the 34, which is a Sunday improvement, just like the one Jim just described. This is a 34 Sunday. Currently, it runs every hour. We want to run it every 30 minutes to make it more useful on Sundays, especially with the connection to Potomac Yard. It's really, we don't want hourly service to a metro station even on a Sunday. That's lower than we would expect. So that's $150,000. That was identified as our second priority. And then our third priority is line 31. Currently, every other trip during off-peak periods traveling into Old Town stops at King Street. So you've got 15-minute service along King Street west of Old Town, but then in Old Town itself, it's 30-minute service. So half the trips you have to stop at King Street and get off and make a transfer to a different route to get into Old Town. So this proposal would change that so that all the routes or all the trips during off-peak periods go all the way to Braddock Road. So you have 15-minute service on the length of the route, wouldn't have to have those transfers, have much better service in Old Town and better connectivity to the west end as well. So that is a larger improvement. That's over $1 million. Okay, so one highlight from that's new for the FY26 ATSP is a study that we did of Arlandria. I was trying to adjust as Tristan Cunningham, our service plan manager in the room, so he can jump in and tell me what I'm getting wrong. But and I may have to defer questions to him. But this was something that came out of last year's ATSP. This was a specific request that came from the board and city council, Councilman Aguirre specifically. Dash currently does serve part of Arlandria. This map, actually, you know what, I might get up and stretch my legs for this one if you guys don't mind. So Dash does serve parts of Arlandria. You can see that we have line 36 is the purple route here, running frequent service along West Glebe Road to Potomac Yard, and then also the 33, which runs from Old Town up through Delray, and then cuts right on Reed, and then ends up at Potomac Yard as well. But the main portion of Mount Vernon Avenue, which includes basically the heart of Arlandria, is not served by Dash. It is served by Metrobus. The 10A, 10B run frequent service. However, Metrobus charges a fare, Dash is free. So the residents of Arlandria, there's almost, I think, 8 to 10,000 of them. Many of them are migrants coming from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Many of them are low income. I think the income is much lower than the citywide averages. So these are typically more transit dependent riders. So the intent was that we find ways to improve the connectivity and affordability of transit for those residents. So we looked at a couple different scenarios. Tristan might be able to get into a little more deeply, but the 4 scenarios, 1 was a no change, just a baseline scenario, keep it as is. 2 was a 33 realignment where we take the teal route 33 and instead of turning right on Reed, we would go all the way up through Arlandria and then cut across on through Arlington and back down to Potomac Yard on the opposite side of the water there. And then the third one was line 36. See the purple route here where we would kind of make a jog up, I think it was Executive Avenue, up to Mount Vernon Avenue and then come back down and resume the route. And then the fourth was an extension of line 34, which currently runs through Old Town, Lee Center, City Hall, up through Old Town North, ends at Potomac Yard, extend that via Reed Avenue, Mount Vernon Avenue, and then kind of turn around up here at Arlington Ridge. So those were the 4 scenarios we looked at. We really wanted to identify potential impact to existing riders, potential for future riders, the cost, equity, and any other considerations that we'd come up with. So based on that analysis, I'm kind of skipping to the end here. We identified that line 34, the extension of line 34 from Potomac Yard to Arlandria made the most sense in terms of the goals that we were trying to achieve. The main reason was that it provided new connections for Arlandria residents to multiple shopping centers. So you can see the route extension here. So connect them to Potomac Yard, so all the shopping there. It would also connect them to a Giant, which is up here at Arlington Ridge. So 2 really good connections there. It also would not have a negative impact to any existing Dash riders. All the other scenarios that we looked at, all the changes had situations where there would be additional delays or deviations that would negatively affect existing Dash riders. So those were some of the analysis. The additional cost is about $600,000 annually. So that is a consideration. We also need an additional bus to do this. And then there's some other minor considerations. We are having discussions with Arlington about this since it does kind of go, we have to turn it around in Arlington. We need to coordinate with them on that. We have started those discussions, but there's more coordination that needs to occur. And then also there's a small capital improvement at the intersection of Richmond Highway and Reed. Currently there's some raised concrete islands that prevent vehicles from going straight across the intersection. So we'd be working with the city to address those. So that's the recommendation that came out of that. And the intent is that we would program that improvement for FY27. So not this coming fiscal year, but the following fiscal year, to kind of out of respect for our current priorities that we have for the ATV. So that's the Arlandria service evaluation. Did I cover it? Anything I missed there? Oh, thank you. What questions do you guys have on that one?
What the fiscal year means, like F27.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Good point. So when I say fiscal year, we're talking about July 1st to June 30th, and it's always kind of a year ahead. So FY26 actually starts July of 2025. So when this current plan that we're looking at is for FY26, so it will start in, what is that, 3 months from now, basically 3 months from today to the date. Wow. That's the start of FY26. So this particular improvement we'd be proposing for FY27. So the earliest it would start, if we get funding and if everything falls into place, would be July 1st of FY26. Yes, 26. Okay. So about a year and a half. Yes.
So you mentioned it would take an extra bus. Where's that going to come from?
Yes, so,
Capital.
so yeah,
That's earlier.
we do have a capital discussion. So thankfully, we do have a couple grants in the pipeline for expansion buses through the Virginia Smart Scale program. And we have 6 buses, 6 expansion buses coming by next year. And we have, I think we would be able to basically cover it through that.
Is that a program that gets public comment, or is that a private, like,
Smart Scale?
yeah, Smart Scale?
Smart Scale does have public comment. However, yes, it does. This project, the 6 buses, is from about 4 or 5 years ago. But I think it's every year, every 2 years, the city applies for projects through Smart Scale.
So those were not replacement buses. Those were expansion buses.
Expansion buses.
So you already have those planned.
Yep. But yes, this is one of the main proposals that we'll be seeking feedback on through the outreach process. So, if you think of anything or have any questions or thoughts, please let us know.
Is there any, I mean, I know that intersection really well, it's really close to my house. Like, is there a major concern of not being able to get the change made because of the risks to the city? I mean, I'm assuming that Dash is not going to send people out to remove those islands.
Yeah.
So is there a risk of this not being possible strictly just because of that blockage of flow of traffic?
So I mean, we coordinate closely with Public Works and tests, on these types of things. I think those islands have been proposed for removal in the past, but there are a lot of changes going on in Potomac Yard regardless, especially to Richmond Highway, with the arena complex. Those discussions were accelerated for a moment, but now they're kind of been backburnered a little bit. But I think the point is that we've talked with tests and Public Works, and I don't see any major barriers to it.
Okay. I mean, because I think the intention, although I would be supportive of this, I think the original intention was basically to keep high volume of traffic going out of Potomac Yard towards the school, because Cork Kelly is basically a block east. And I think the intention is to keep that from becoming a high traffic thoroughfare where there's lots of kids walking to school.
Yeah. So I think we'd have to work out the details, perhaps the bus only movement. But I think the city has shown that they're open to ideas for it.
Okay.
Okay, so I think maybe 2 more slides here before I turn it over to Camilla. First is the Better Bus Network redesign. We talked briefly, but the Metro has been working for the last few years on this Better Bus project where they redesign the entire network. They renumber the routes, make the network more useful and kind of meeting the needs of the region. So they are launching the first phase in June 29th to be exact. So on that day, all the routes numbers will change. You've already seen probably some of the Metro Bus signs have started to change already, where you can see the new numbers. They're like F29 and A11 and all kinds of stuff. So look out for those. But the actual change will happen on June 29th. It's largely positive for Alexandria. We're getting a couple new routes, the A70 and A71, providing good connections to Arlington that don't exist today. The A29 we mentioned will provide a direct commuter route to the Pentagon. And then there was a potential that the service would be removed from Taney Avenue. The current AW that has since changed. We've worked with WMATA on that. So they will be maintaining service on Taney Avenue, which was a big question. There is some segments that are being discontinued along the 22A, 23B, 8W, 22F. These are kind of North Van Dorn Street, near Park Place, as well as parts of Park Fairfax. There was a careful analysis done on those particular segments. They're very low ridership, and I think the determination to the impact will be minimal. There's more information on WMATA.com. Happy to answer any questions, though, that you might have. This is a very big change. We want to make sure we don't overlook it. All right. And the last thing I'll highlight, the ATSP is generally focused on the next fiscal year, which is, as we mentioned, is FY26 starting July 1st. We do have some proposed improvements for 27 and 28, which I've outlined here. These are some additional kind of deferred transit vision improvements that we wanted to do, including the 30 to 32, and then you see the 34 improvement that we just talked about for Alexandria, as well as bringing the 103 and the 104, which are commuter routes to the Pentagon, back up to the level they were before the pandemic, which is every 20 minutes instead of the 30 minutes they're operating right now. And then in FY '28, we've got some additional improvements, including a potential extension to King Street Trolley and the implementation of the West End Transit Way on the west end. So these are a little further out, but still included in our plan. And hopefully we'll be seeing them soon.
Good. And I know it's further out there. We got a lot of things, but maybe a minute on how the West End Transit Way will work relative to the existing routes. Will you anticipate that it'll be Dash operating West End Transit Way service?
It's a little bit, we're working very closely with the city and with Metro, kind of behind the scenes right now on the exact implications.
I'll save it for another time.
Okay, more info to come soon. I'll say that. Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. So we've done an extensive outreach process. You'll see a little flyer on the table that has the QR code to the survey that we created. It is available in English, Spanish, and Persian.
Persian, Amharic, and Arabic.
Yes. And we're glad to say that we've participated in some of the events. So last week, well, March 20th, we went to a city event. It was called the City Budget Bonanza. Different departments were there. We were part of the event. We were there just giving information to people, making sure they fill out the survey. This Saturday, the team went to an event with Alive that we partnered with them last year. So they invited us. We were part of their event. Tomorrow, we're also going to be going to another event by Alive. And then next week, we do have the public hearing with the ATSP. I mean, the ATSP public hearing with the board meeting. So if you want to be part of that, you're welcome to come. That meeting is going to be here at Dash. The board meeting, yeah, that's, yeah, I think it is here at Dash. We also have another event that we were invited, which is April 10, and this is the Alexandria Youth Speak Up program. So we'll be there providing information to some of the students. And then the survey closes April 18th. So feel free to share the survey with people that you might know. Make sure that if you have time, if you're able to fill out the survey, that would be great. And then, like I said, you're happy to join any of the events that are happening or anything that we're being part of, let me know. So this is kind of what I did. I just explained. We had various partnerships, ACPS, Alive, the city. So we share this information with some of our partners. And like I mentioned, the survey is available in different languages. We also send various e-blasts. I know some of the media outlets picked up on the survey and they share that information on their social media and their media outlets as well. Any questions about that? Has anyone? If you have any feedback, let us know. This is the first time that we did the survey like this. So you do have the options of answering specific questions depending on the line you use, or we do have the option of just providing general feedback.
And also do have a few print materials. If y'all have any meetings or anything coming up, we can provide y'all with those to either hand out or we can send over the link to send out to y'all's respective audiences.
I vaguely remember last fall, we have survey that's conducted on the bus. That's a different survey from the one we're running on right now.
Yeah, that was actually, what's that? I think it was 2 falls ago, fall 2023. But yeah, so every 5 years, we're required to conduct a full comprehensive onboard rider survey where there's people with tablets that, ask riders questions. So that was fall 2023, which is a different survey. Yeah. Any other ATSP questions? I did have one other quick. Jim, I think it was you, the budget question about free fares, was that?
I sent that to you.
Jason.
Jason had requested and I had forwarded that request to you.
Okay, do you want me to respond to that here or?
I think that would be, I would think that would be great unless you feel like it would be, better to have a more fully supported response in a future meeting. But I think I would welcome it here.
Okay, is Jason on or? Still on? Okay.
Yep, I'm
I-
right here. I'm right here, Martin.
James, I think your question was just about potential resumption of free fares and what that would take. Was that kind of the gist of the question?
Well, yeah, that is the gist. You know, a little bit more of the intent. You know, there's a handful of us that were on the board pre free fare, and all of us remember the conversations. But just for our incoming members that weren't part of those conversations, just to kind of level set, you know, that we were a fare-based business, and that free fare was a very temporary plan or something that we agreed to not too long ago. So I guess where I wanted to go with that is just kind of give everybody else on the board the same information that the other portion of the board already had through experience, and just share that with everybody, because I don't want to say we're in a new normal, because we're still in an exception phase as I see it when it comes to fares. And so just kind of level set everybody information wise. And also I do want to put some, I mean, we've had exceptional ridership. We've had record ridership. That means potentially you could have had, or we could have in the future, record revenue. So I just wanted to also put that out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can give you kind of the brief synopsis, and then if we want to have more discussions, perhaps that could be for another meeting or offline. But yeah, Jason kind of covered a lot of it. But so Dash is fare free, as we all know, and the intent is that we will be fare free for the foreseeable future. The funding originally came from a state grant from DRPT, Department of Public Transit, through their TRIP program. Too many acronyms: Transit Ridership Incentive Program. So that was a 4-year grant that we got back in 2021, and it was for $7 million spread across 4 years. It kind of stepped down so that the locality would have to step up their commitment throughout the course of the 4 years. We've now reached the 4th year, which is fully on the city of Alexandria, which means, and when I say fully on the city of Alexandria, I mean that the offset for lost revenues is covered by the city of Alexandria fully now. So we're actually not receiving any more state funding this year. But what that does is allows the city to have free fares baked into the baseline budget, basically. So that's where we're at right now. And that baseline budget is used year to year as our baseline. So the intent is that unless there's any significant changes, that Dash would continue to be fare free. In terms of the discussions, you know, I know it's come up a couple of times in the budget process this year of what it would take to go back to free fares, and why we're not really actively considering that is that, well, a couple of things. The biggest factor is that our fare collection equipment, the actual fare boxes that are actually still on the buses, are extremely old and have actually passed the end of their useful life for most of the buses. So they are literally kind of hanging together by rubber bands and paper clips at this point, and they're not supported. So we would have to, if we were to resume collecting fares, we would have to purchase all new fare box equipment, which would be initial upfront capital investment of at least $6 to $7 million, probably more. You know, we haven't updated that number recently. It's in the last year or so. So it's probably actually more than that now. And it would also require a lengthy procurement process, probably 1.5 years to 2 years. So there's a lot of hurdles to doing that. And it's not just something we can just flip a switch and start collecting fares again, even if we wanted to.
Cheaper to stay free.
Cheaper to stay free at this point, yeah. So that's where we're at.
And we're doing all door boarding. You just mentioned the operational impacts of going back to fare collection.
Yeah. So, you know, we are saving some time in terms of allowing people to board from the rear door. So that is another benefit of free fares. I would just quick plug, we have a free fares website. If you're interested in this, we have put out a couple annual reports, dashbus.com/free. And it talks about all the benefits of free fares, some of the cash savings from like not having to have the Brinks truck come and collect cash. We don't have a mobile ticketing app because we're not, not charging fares. So there's a lot of considerations, but I'd encourage you to check that out, dashbus.com/free.
And part of Jason bringing it up, I think, was, yes, there's costs. There's the upfront cost and up to 2 years to outfit the operational cost. But on the revenue side, I think one of Jason's questions is, what would the revenue look like, assuming we still had the same sort of fare structure we had before?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. We've been asked that before. It's a tough question to answer. Prior to COVID, we were seeing $3 to maybe $4 million a year in revenues. Ridership is up, but some of that, is due to free fares. So based on, what you assume for the elasticity and how.
Yeah, how much would the ridership go down if you
Right.
start charging again?
Exactly. So it's hard to say, but
So,
that 3 to 4
Do
million
you
is kind of
remember
what
what
we use.
the operating costs were, when we were collecting 3 to 4 million in revenue, what were the operating costs?
They were significantly lower than they are today. I think they were
20 million?
mid-20s maybe. Yeah.
So basically, we were recovering 1/7 of the cost.
The fair, yeah, 1/7 fractions decimals. I mean, most transit agencies are in the 15 to 20% for fare box recovery.
Yeah, so I think we were lower
Yeah, I think so.
because we had reduced fares for seniors. We had free fares for students.
Yep.
For a couple of years, several years before free fares.
Yep.
Does that answer your question, Jason?
It does. I guess what I'm really trying to kind of get my head around is I mean, it was 4 million back during a very lull period of time, and in today's dollars, in today's business, and the amount of revenue we could generate, I can't imagine it wouldn't be more towards 6 to 7 million, and it's no longer budget dust at that point. Big picture is, I guess, if we already have all these, because we don't have to have the same machines in there. I know that there's more digital means versus cash. That's always an opportunity, and I understand that there would also be a cost to putting something new in there and maintaining it. But I think there's a reason why that we're one of the very few, if only, transit, bus companies out there that doesn't charge. It's on the backs of the taxpayer. It's on the back of the property owners. At the end of the day, that's where this money comes from. And so I guess I'm just fiscally concerned that we're letting good money go away. I know the federal government, all the people I ride the bus with, which is many, the federal government actually pays for their ride. That's free money that we're giving away. So, but I'm also not penny wise pound foolish either. But I just wanted to see, in today's dollars, and also in today's expenses and in today's ridership, is it something we should seriously be taking a look at? Because I just feel it's discarded very easily, and it's not our money. And I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, point well taken, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Martin.
Yep.
Thanks, Camilla. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I think I got to meet when I just got here. I'm the digital marketing content designer here at Dash. When I joined here last November, I brought with me about over a decade of graphic design experience, including logo and visual branding design. And one of the first projects that I was given when I started here at Dash was to think about a way to refresh or update the Dash logos. I'll make this very quick since I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but basically I'll go through some of the visual inspiration that I looked at for these logos. I'll show you the logos themselves. And then finally, I would love to hear your thoughts on how best to communicate this branding update to the public. So let's just get started here. So this slide really just represents some of the visual inspiration that I was looking at, specifically around the trolley logo and what I'll call the Dash word logo. So that's the version that you see on the wall here that just says Dash, and above it says the words Alexandria Transit Company. So on the left side here, you can see a lot of what works really well with these logos is also what works really well currently with the Dash word logo, and that you have these really bold kind of visually impactful letters. The things about these logos that I thought could be improved on with the existing Dash logo is really three things. The way that the A and the S in the word Dash currently forms a single ligature or extra shape is very distracting, and I think it makes the logo itself look a little bit unrefined. Whereas all of these logos, every letter has its own kind of distinct form. A second thing was the way some of the spacing around all the letters in the existing Dash logo looks right now is a little bit tense. So a lot of these have just like kind of a better visual spacing. And then the third thing is that whenever there is supplemental text, it tends to go below the logos. So I wanted to explore ways to express Alexandria Transit Company, or as you'll see, Alexandria Transit placed below the Dash logo. On the right side is more of my visual inspiration for the trolley logo. For this, I was looking at kind of classic American Railroad logos, as well as Japanese train stamps. And as you'll see with the logo, as well as kind of vintage transit tokens. So moving forward, this is a side-by-side of the logos that I have designed versus the existing logos, which you can see on a row at the bottom. These logos have all been through several rounds of feedback internally at Dash here, and we've also showed these to the board of directors. We haven't yet kind of released them to the Dash staff at large, nor of course have we shown the public. So this is, this step here. You can see a lot of what I really wanted to do with these logos is more of a refinement or an evolution of the logos. None of these logos have really been updated significantly since Dash's beginnings in 1984. And because there is a lot of good public will towards the Dash brand, I didn't want any of these designs to be seen as a drastic redesign, but really rather as a refinement. So like I was discussing with some of my inspiration on the previous slide, for the Dash word logo, you can see that every letter form now has its own distinct shape with this sort of suggestion of a stroke around every letter that really visually separates it from one another. It was decided that the phrase Alexandria Transit Company didn't need to be spelled out fully in the logo, so I wanted to shorten it to Alexandria Transit to increase visibility. For the Dash bus logo on the far left, I wanted to kind of just take away everything that I felt was extraneous from the logo. So that included the Masonic monument form, the trees and buildings, the sort of gradients in the and very highly detailed road, and also sort of refine how the shape of the sunburst and the word Dash could interact with each other visually, while of course retaining the illustration of the bus, which I find to be really friendly and approachable. The trolley is something that changed quite a bit from the existing logo. We are really trying to express more to the public that the trolley is part of Dash. That's something that we've always struggled with communicating. So by bringing in the Dash colors, but in more of kind of a vintage color palette and sort of navy and gold, as well as incorporating a version of a Dash word logo, we're really hoping that when we do use this trolley logo, which right now is primarily on the street signs next to Dash bus stops, that fact that they are operated by the same bus company will be more clear. So my last, here we have some variant examples for the Dash word logo. One of the things I was really excited about with the kind of redesign that I come up with was the ability to have a lot more fun and creative freedom with the colors of the Dash logo, just for very special occasions. You can see during Pride Month, we could experiment with a gradient of a rainbow in the background of Dash, and then we can have lots of fun with all the different colors for other kind of special occasions. So finally, you can see just some ideas about how this logo application could look in a few different areas. On the left, you can see just a quick mock-up I've made of what this logo could look like on our buses. Again, I really wanted it to be something that was still very visible from far away, that still reminded people of the Dash logo, because it really should still look like Dash, but that just was a little bit clearer, a little bit more refined. And then on the right, you can see how the bus logo proposal that I made could fit much more nicely and more visibly on certain smaller applications like our social media accounts. So that is my presentation. Like I said, I would really love to hear kind of your thoughts on how to share this with all of our other writers. Thank you.
Are you looking for any feedback on the logos themselves or just the sort of outreach process?
So these logos, like I said, have gone through quite a lot of rounds of feedback internally with ELT and SMT here. So really, we're at a point where we're focusing on the best way to kind of communicate these logos and kind of roll.
You have a target date?
Yeah, so it's really going to be a phased application because, you know, really replacing logos and everything, especially the bus livery, is very expensive. Our plan is to, whenever things need to be replaced, to incorporate the new logo whenever possible. So things that are digital, like our social media avatars and our website, that can be done very quickly. We are hoping for this all to happen starting in the next month or so. Dash is participating, for example, in World Pride and the Alexandria Pride Festival, and we're designing a special bus route for that. So having the new logo on that asset, for example. But as far as other things, you know, I think a timeline of over the next year, kind of introducing the logo as it's needed. This was something else that I was keeping in mind as I was developing these designs, because it should be obvious when you see one next to another that it's still the same transit company.
I really like your social media posts, especially the ones from recent months.
Oh,
But we need to get your followers up. You only have 64.
wow.
Need to work on that.
Definitely.
Jen, I'll just mention for the trolley side, we've got the trolley replacements coming up in the next, say, 18 months or so. And I don't know if the blue on a red paint scheme really makes a lot of sense. So you might want to, you know, sort of think about how that all comes together.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the trolleys. It's come up in our discussions of these designs about what the trolleys would look like. The trolley logo as it exists actually doesn't appear on the trolleys themselves.
Yeah.
So really the only place that anyone sees these logos is on the street signs, the stop signs, as well as some printed materials like the rack cards that show the route. There's been a lot of vocal opposition, specifically from Josh, about changing the color of the trolleys. So I think that those will stay red. We've been thinking about ways to possibly incorporate this logo on the trolleys themselves, but definitely to incorporate more Dash branding on the trolleys, just again, to like really reiterate that they're operated by Dash, and that also that people can take the 30 and 31 in addition to the trolley when the trolleys are very crowded during you know, peak season.
I was going to make a similar comment, not to hijack El's meeting, but the Sunburst logo, it's the same thing. There's got to be a number of Dash passengers that have never seen that logo because it only goes out on like printed, the same thing, printed communications and all. It's never appeared on a bus.
Right, right. So as far as where the bus or word logos are currently used, that probably won't change very much at all. The Sunburst logo really only exists on our social media and in some parts of our website, so that would stay the same.
So your question about how to roll it out is multifaceted. There's a social media which is applicable to some of these things.
Yeah.
There is on bus lettering, which is my understanding is going to be done as buses are repaired, repainted, or procured. And so that's going to take place actually over several years, regardless of what we say about the rollout. And then there's signage for the trolley, right? And so at least those three things, which are all different. The signage, the social media is essentially instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
The signage would presumably be done over a short period of time for the trolley, and the buses will be, you know, as we procure buses.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, starting with that last one, the only input I have, I'd be happy with almost anything you do, but so I welcome other inputs by the others. But at some point, it'd be important to explain to people why some buses look different than others.
It's a really good point.
And so
Yeah.
people go, oh, wow, why is that different? And so, but But since the bus rollout is so slow, that's not an immediate issue.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
we
that's all
would
I-
reach a point where you'd have half and half maybe, or
Yeah,
you'd
maybe a
have.
third or something. yeah.
Right, yes, that's a really good thing to keep in
Anyway.
mind.
It's a good call. I think the other thing that I think of is, I've been through some, not public agency, but private rebranding or opportunities, and almost always the rebranding has a why. And, I've been in ones where we were rebranded because we wanted to go to a private equity event as a unified brand, or we wanted to go to we wanted to go to some commercial event where we could represent ourselves in a different way than that was previous. In this case, it sounds like you want to represent all the good of Dash, but maybe in a different view. So I mean, maybe if you articulated that piece, I think the answer will become a little more clear.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
What's the why?
To that point, just a kind of global question, is this the only like brand update that is being looked at? Because I think like if there's a larger kind of brand refresh occurring, I mean, my recommendation would be to integrate that all together instead of like, piecemealing, updating the logo, updating, our colors, updating our, value proposition, whatever it is.
This is part of a larger project around nailing down our brand guidelines for our communications, making sure things like that are consistent. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, just making sure that everything's more cohesive,
Yeah.
and we receive a lot of feedback about the trolley and Dash. People waiting for the trolley when they can take Dash just because they know that the trolley's free. So really making sure that there's cohesion and then there's a unity between all the different levels.
As far as updating the colors, that has never come up really as a request during feedback. I mean, obviously the trolley introduces a new palette. As I was working on these logos, I wanted to make sure that certain aspects of the brand stayed cohesive, especially since this rollout will take place over such a long period of time. So retaining the existing colors makes sense in that regard. Also personally, from kind of a design standpoint, the blue and yellow make a lot of sense because they do relate to the metro colors here in Alexandria. You've also got kind of the sea and the sky, which works really nicely. And also one thing, as you can see with the bus logo retaining the color green from the old logo, the messaging around blue plus yellow equals green is something that we're really trying to work with and continue as we kind of discuss our ongoing commitment to sustainability. So again, I wanted this to be like more of a refinement and an evolution of the brand versus kind of a really big redesign.
I think that's really awesome. I mean, hearing you kind of speak behind the whys, I mean, really interesting. The last thing I was just gonna say is, I know you're asking us for like, do we feel like the attribution of the two between the trolley and the Dash primary Dash logo work? Do you all have any? I mean, my recommendation would be to like do a quantitative survey along those lines and see if like there is attribution. I mean, I know you can do surveying where it's like you do blind associations, and that might help kind of, I don't know the status necessarily, the inner workings of who or what's going to, be the deciding factor in which direction it's gone. But I mean, my recommendation would be, if you're looking for that answer, like ask the customer.
I know we talked about reducing printing of ride guides potentially, so I don't want to have a printing solution. But the second I saw the King Street trolley logo, I said,
that is something a young person, if it was a sticker, would put on the reusable water bottle. And so I'm not certain if a good way to get out and socialize the logo is to print 500 stickers or whatever and have them next to the driver and say, it's kind of like the little kid getting the wings on the airplane from the captain almost. But potentially, I think that would be really cool. I think there are certain communities in the public that would definitely love that. Definitely not an everyone thing. I'm not a sticker guy. Again, stickers, but I think it's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, the trolley logo specifically, a lot of the feedback has been around the kind of tactile nature of it. So Josh had mentioned all the time that it reminds him of an old transit token. Like I had said, a lot of my inspiration came from stamps. So we really want to explore ways to share this in that really kind of tactile and physical way. I really like that idea of giving away
It's like a cheap
stickers. Yeah.
way to just hand out physically. Yeah, I guess the cheapest way, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Jason. If you guys don't mind if I jump in for a second, I have an idea. Good idea, Fairy just showed up.
Yeah, of course.
No, so Alexandria High School has a fantastic, business education department, and they study a lot of marketing. And of course, that's part of our demographic. There's a lot of high school kids riding the bus, that's for sure. So I've just put it out there. If you were to ever stop by there or, set up an appointment, and I could be part of that process, no problem. But to maybe solicit the help of the marketing students next year to be part of that, because they may come up with some ideas that you never thought of on how to roll it out or how to actually maybe tackle that demographic even a little bit more effectively. But just putting that out there is, kind of recruiting them and being part of an unpaid member of the staff.
Yeah, I really like that idea. Thank you.
I'll grab a name and a number. And if you're interested, we'll go with it.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a youth outreach event already planned.
Yeah,
Yeah, so on April 10th, we'll be joining the Alexandria Youth Speak Up.
Yeah.
Especially with a lot of the conversation being around Dash potentially taking over, still being in the early conversations of that, but taking over high school transportation. So
Yeah.
wanting to be there.
That might be an opportunity to get something really good feedback.
So I still remember, the logo was 40 years in it. I'm just curious if we can take a page from that. Like, what was that implementation like?
it was just for the anniversary, so we had some decals on some of our buses, and we just had some materials for the anniversary celebration. So we didn't do like a big outreach process or implementation process, since it was just kind of mostly for social media that we were kind of updating stuff and for stuff that we gave out at the anniversary.
But that kind of ties in like the idea of the sticker, like making the logo introduction be something that's very community focused and engaging. I think that's a good idea.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
It's so nice to meet y'all.
Okay. I know we're already over on time. I want to make sure that we address a few closing formalities, and then I'll ask an indulgence if folks from the deck are willing to still take a few minutes on the workshop. But I wanted to first open and move to approve the meeting minutes as distributed by Camilla via email. I don't know if there are any questions or revisions, but if anyone would like to second them. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. We'll go ahead and open for ayes.
All right.
So, or
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. Any abstentions? Sorry, go ahead. Any abstentions or nays? Okay, they are approved as presented. Thank you, Camilla. Couple of quick things. I mentioned this in the opening welcome. I'll provide the census as a follow-up to this meeting, so everyone can see sort of the lines that are represented with our current membership, as well as other organizations that folks are connected with. I would like to continue to expand the ways that the DAC can provide meaningful impact, both from budget advocacy, as well as by collecting and actioning meaningful feedback about service. So you'll receive a copy of that. If you have ideas or anything that come out of that, please send me your suggestions and ideas. Lastly, two other quick closing remarks here. We are going to be making a concerted effort towards sending pre-reads, ideally a week in advance. I know this was the first time we kind of buried you all. We'll work on getting that coordinated a little bit better in the future. I would like to try to get more space in the meetings so that we have this kind of discussion element. And we'll of course still have presentations, especially on the most impactful things, but we'll be trying to provide some pre-read and absolutely come with your questions. Lastly, I just wanted to give a thank you first to Jim. Jim did draft the letter that was sent to council. Thank you for that and the initiative of getting that off the ground. I wanted to thank all members for their support of that, as well as the census. Really appreciate all of that effort that was done in between our previous Q1 DAC meeting and the current. So thank you all very, very much. Any other business? And then I'll request my indulgence to, even if it's just 5 minutes, to do a quick review of what we've been doing and what we want to do in the future. Any other business we want to cover or feedback to the Dash professional staff while we have some? Okay. Jim, did you have something?
No.
Okay. I will do my best here to do this very briefly. Jim and I met a couple of times now, but in the first meeting, we did a quick summarization of what a rider advisory committee can do. And we took our many-page guidelines and boiled it down to just these 5 bullets, which is public engagement and representation. This is ensuring that community members, including riders, businesses, stakeholders, all have a voice in transit planning as well as decision-making. This being one key purpose: service improvements, providing feedback on transit service, performance, accessibility, customer satisfaction, and finding ways to improve efficiency and effectiveness. In fact, this was one of the key areas, I think, when I conducted the one-on-one interviews with members of the DAC, that many folks really were focused on this piece. Policy and budget recommendations, which regards focusing on advising transit agencies on policies, fare structures, budgets. I think a number of folks, this was probably the next highest thing that I heard in those one-on-one pieces, is just being able to do that advocacy for the budget. Equity and accessibility was a key topic that came up as well, and is reflected, promoting equitable access to transit for underserved populations, including with people with different abilities, low-income riders, marginalized communities, and then long-term planning and sustainability, which I think, at least in my tenure, has been, I think, very well managed between Josh and Martin. We spent quite a lot of, I think, time talking about our long-term plans. So these, I think, at a high level is, I think, a distillation of what our guidelines comes to. What I'd like to spend a few minutes, and I welcome open discussion. Dr. if you would move, I will try to take notes as well here and distribute the slide, is what are we currently doing? And again, we'll try to keep this to just 5 or 10 minutes. What are we doing in terms of how well are we doing in each of these different elements? What are we doing today? And then how would you rate how we're doing that? So I'm just going to pull up my slides here so everyone can see it. And I'll try to take live notes here as we go. So in terms of public engagement and representation, looking for some feedback on what you feel that we're doing in terms of this level of engagement from the DAC.
I have some inputs, but I'm jumping ahead here. Can I
Sure.
look at future state?
Sure.
Maybe we could break into subcommittees. There are, I don't know how many there are.
Could you go back to, we can see everybody online? But I don't even know how many people are on.
In total, there are
They're all
12 staff.
there.
7-12.
12 staff.
There's 12 of us.
Let's say 2 or 3 members are in one subcommittee and we each take one pillar. And then the executive board, which will be the chair, vice chair, can also individually take on one. So maybe, yeah, it's like 3 people in one subcommittee. And then each meeting, we could have a standing item and say, do a report out. What are we up to?
You're talking about for each of these 5 pillars.
Yeah. So maybe the e-board can take policy and budget recommendations. And the rest of the folks divide.
So then you say we should take these, divide into groups today and then take these for homework and report out next time?
Yeah, or if just based on individuals' interest, if there's
yeah.
interest in forming subcommittees, so we could caucus locally. And then if there are things to report back on a quarterly basis, we could. So we'll be doing homework outside of the meeting time. And then during the meeting time, report out.
Right, with this first homework assessment being hopefully for each of these 5 areas, sort of where are we starting from? What's the baseline?
Yeah,
And how well is that working? And any recommendations for future?
we could do I'm getting ahead of myself, but we could do a retreat every year and then do like a scorecard kind of event similar to what we're doing right now. Revolving around these pillars.
This is Jason, is there some flexibility with the 5 categories? And the reason why I asked is, what about the rider experience? I mean, that at the end of the day, that's distilled everything. At the end of the day, it's distilled down to the rider experience. If there's a subcommittee for that, I'd be the first one to raise my hand.
I mean, I think,
The service improvement and evaluation would be part of that.
yeah, absolutely.
Specifically says customer satisfaction.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yeah.
what Eric and Blake are voicing. I think that is, I think that's a good place that represents the rider experience and how we can continue to improve.
Okay, yeah, I'm on the phone, so I can't see what you see. So I'm hitting the I believe button. So I'm with you. Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I took a note here just to show that you have strong interest. I think that reinforces maybe Yvette's inclination that subcommittees could be formed on. Even if we can't tackle all 5, if there are places of specific interest where we have at least 2 or 3 members, that we could start with that idea. Any other ideas? I mean, we don't have to formally follow this assessment, but I'm interested in hearing, I mean, even if we skip what we're doing, if you think about what we're doing, how well and effectively do you think it is working, the things that we're doing today? I mean, I think personally speaking, I think from a budget advocacy side, we're doing significantly better than I expected before joining. And I think that has remained consistently strong. And I think it can continue to be strengthened. And I think based on my discussions with members, there are people who really would love to work on that as a subcommittee, myself included.
I would be open to like a Google Calendar where we put all of the key dates ahead, like budget calendar, city's calendar, DAC, board of director, key dates, put it into and then we subscribe to the Google Calendar. Things of that nature.
It's a great idea.
I don't know if everybody can hear that. She suggested a Google Calendar. And she mentioned, key dates of the budget. When Daniel and I discussed this, we also discussed having, an outreach calendar as well. So I don't know if those are 2 calendars or we try and mesh it all into one.
Into one.
What's that?
Yeah, just one calendar.
Yeah, one calendar. But yeah, we definitely need, currently on the budget, I'd be happy to create the inputs for the annual budget. I know that almost by heart. As I'm sure some other people like Jim Best like to do as well. But on the outreach calendar, I defer to Dash to build that for us. And the budget calendar certainly lends itself to an annual calendar. The outreach calendar maybe, does the annual calendar make sense or just a 3-month or 4-month look ahead?
We have ongoing like meeting events, so we can add those all
Yeah,
on an annual
yeah.
basis, and then as we have more
Yeah, so we can build
events, we
that.
can add them.
And in the meeting agenda, we can just list, key days ahead. What we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim and I went to a city council meeting. Well, Jim went actually. I joined virtually. We went to board meetings. I think, one thing that I think could be done is we could strengthen the number of voices. I think really does matter. And I think if we can get that schedule out, and even if people are interested, start taking a little bit, not explicitly attendance, but getting some volunteerism there. I think that strengthens our case to actually make impacts. And also well, personally speaking, I think it's pretty fun to be able to meet with, talk with these other members of the community. Any other reflections on what's working well, what we're doing, or other ideas for future state?
Just if my only idea is if you want to have a discussion like this, maybe have it earlier in the meeting so it isn't rushed and people have been, absorbing information for quite a while now. And it might be good to have the discussion about what are we doing and what should we be doing earlier in the agenda.
Agreed. And Camilla had pronounced that same idea. I just thought that it would be better at the end. We just took a little longer to get here than I expected. But yeah, Bonnie, well said and definitely heard. Okay. If there are no other feedback, I will provide just one additional slide. Camilla, if you would go to the final slide. Oh no, I'm presenting. I will go to the final slide. Sorry, it's not in presentation mode here. I was trying to take notes. These are a couple potential initiatives that I've come up with, working with the DASH group, as well as talking with Jim and a number of you during one-on-one interviews. I am interested in helping to drive the public to join our DAC meetings. I don't think we have had any live attendees. I think that would be difficult to do, but I do think that we could certainly have virtual folks join live. I would be interested in increasing the membership. We have a charter up to 17, and we're at 12 today. We don't have a formal application or even an application process that I'm aware of to date. So I do think we can also look to identify networking opportunities to connect the DAC with other groups. You'll get information about the other groups that exist through the census that I'll provide here shortly after the meeting. Yvette had raised the idea of a DAC handbook. I think this is a great idea that can help strengthen our ability to attract new folks that are interested and help them get up to speed quickly. I feel, well, my personal experience was that it takes some getting used to the DAC before you know how you can contribute. And something like this could help new members make an impact quicker. Support, I would say, is maybe a better word than conduct, but support DASH medias through our own evaluations. I don't think we've ever really done that. We've talked candidly. I know Marcos, not in our, we didn't have a chance to connect one-on-one, but I've heard you multiple times provide feedback about that. And I think we could do a more formal feedback process. Subcommittees was mentioned by the group already. Member calendar has been mentioned as well. And then just a way to connect DAC feedback with community feedback, I think, is the final idea there. So I'll share a copy of these slides. I'd love for you to think about them. Send me ideas. I'll include it with the census information. Bonnie, apologies that I got squeezed in at the last second. Apologies to all members for that. But I do think that this committee is for us to shape, and I want to hear as many ideas as possible and run with the ones that we can handle. Okay, we're already 20 minutes over. Appreciate the indulgence here with the extra time.
I think we had the last slide was also upcoming meetings, the schedule.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry for scrolling here.
Yes, those were some of the proposed dates that we had for the upcoming, the third quarter meeting and the fourth quarter meeting. So we can send this in, maybe you can let us know which ones will work best, and then we can coordinate on setting up those meetings ahead of time.
Any feedback on these proposed dates before we close, or any other business?
I know we had some questions about November 5th at 7, since that week's election week, so I don't know if there's any
Yeah, I
concerns.
would say
Maybe
October's better. But again, to my earlier comment, if we decide to meet with the ATC board, we haven't really discussed that today. But at previous DAC meetings, there was an interest in the group of us attending an ATC board and participating with an ATC board. And the way Josh in another conversation had proposed it is to have an agenda item that is something we're working on and is something the ATC board is working on. So we are all at the table for at least one major topic. And so we need to tee that up in, I guess, at our next meeting in July. What do we propose as a topic we can work on with the ATC board, and then work on getting that scheduled either at their October meeting or their November meeting, if it's going to be in the fall. You know, rather than us just showing up to be interested in one of their meetings, actually working with the ATC board on something. Is that, anybody else besides be interested in that?
No, I would be interested in that.
You had heads nodding in the room. I'm not sure about online, but.
Are you suggesting that we have a working session for DAC Q3 meeting to plan that, or do you think that should be outside of the meeting?
I think it probably, some of us probably need to work on it before the next meeting, get some proposals out to the DAC, and then maybe decide at the next meeting. Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
I don't just start discussing it at the next meeting from scratch. And it's effectively as anybody who's interested in working at, let Nathaniel know.
One of the things that you might want to think about as far as the third quarter meeting is that August tends to be a really dead month. So I think having the meeting July 28th or sometime in July would be preferable. I think that most things don't occur in August. So I think that we might want to have our third quarter meeting in July sometimes, the 28th or even a little bit earlier.
I second that motion.
Agreed. Okay, so we'll look to July for the next call, and we'll make sure that we have already started. And if you're interested, please voice via email. You're interested in working in being part of a working group for identifying activities to jointly work with the board. Okay, I think that's all of the business. Thank you so much. We'll work on getting the time scripted into the agenda. We worked on it this time, but we'll do better next time. Thanks, everyone.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, do we need
Thanks
to-
much.
All right. Thank you.
Good job at chairing your first meeting.
Yeah.
No. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Ben, did you have a couple of minutes or?
Yeah.